Hello everybody, welcome to Shield Studio. This is kind of a different than we're usually doing. I am a DM, longtime DM for Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if any of you have used DnDBeyond. I'm not being promoted by them, there's no connection, but I just wanted to show a little homebrewing content. Kind of help those out who might not know how to homebrew. Maybe you already do and you just want some ideas. So, get right into it. Today, we are creating a subclass for the monk. And we are going to use 2014 rules. Alrighty. And then, now you can do what I do, which is use some of, your own homebrew stuff, but not everybody does that. Oh, is mine? I think my homebrew one is... Oh no, I don't have... Do I not have a... No, I thought I had a monk class. Let's see... What is that? Warden, Free League. Oh, okay. Now, we're going to be doing monk. And it doesn't look like it's registering my homebrew content. Because, if you all can see, I already have a homebrew class. Let's see, somewhere around here. Way of the Dragon, yeah, Way of the Digi-Spirit Warrior. This is a subclass I made for Monk for my Digimon 5e game. It uses mostly the concepts of the Way of the Elements. So there's a lot of aspects to it that are, copied. But this time I'm creating something different. So, I'm trying to think what would be the best one, because you always, when you do D&D homebrew with D&D Beyond, the best thing is to start with something that's going to have the things you need. Especially when it comes to like creating multiples of choices. So choosing things that already have a choice is probably not a bad idea. I think Ascended Dragon might be my best bet, but let me check. So Monk, Ascendant Dragon. Way of the Ascendant Dragon. Now, does this have what we were looking for? Because it does have Dragonic stuff, but it doesn't look like you actually choose anything. It just automatically sets it up for you. So the goal is to look for monk classes that already have choices that you can edit. Oh, get out of that. So, I don't have elements, the Way of the Elements, sadly. So, I don't have that on my homebrew. So I can't use that in my D&D Beyond. But you can if you have it. If you're looking for a thing that'll give you options. Now, let's see. Does Kensai have options? When you choose tradition, this path always includes instructions. You gain the following benefits. Okay, so these are also just given. So we try something else. What about Astral Self? Nope, this is also not the same. So we go with Sun Soul and see what that does. Nope, that's not it either. Alright, well the only one we have left is Open Hand. And again, nothing. So it really doesn't matter what you choose in this particular self then. Because it's going to be the same concept of extra work you have to do. Now, if you had 4 elements, I'd recommend that. But honestly, there's really no good way to do it. So your best bet is just... So I'm going to use Way of the Ascended Dragon. Or, well, let's check. What is Way of Mercy? Does that have anything? It does not. So no matter what you do, unless you choose a specific monk, subclass, you're going to be out of luck with that. I think I just made a new, yeah, there we go. Okay. So we're just going to go with Ascended Dragon as our base. There's also a lot of aspects to Ascended Dragon that we can use, because it gives you also extra attacks, which we'll see in a second here. So here we go. Create subclass. All right, first off, we rename it. Way of the 12 Stars. So this is a homebrew of my own. I have not made it before, but it's the concept of, you know, there is a, I guess you'd call it, I got the inspiration because I love Zodiac stuff. Me and my wife love talking about Zodiac concepts. So the concept of the Zodiac, but also I wanted to create something for a Astral Sea campaign. So kind of more futuristic, kind of in space for a monk. So I also wanted it to be kind of a futuristic type of monk, something that could be used in space. And what monks in the world are there that have spatial abilities? I mean, the go-to is Star Wars with Jedi. So this will be kind of similar to that, but different. All right, so a short description. If you don't know what a short description is, this is just the introductory text. So, for instance, this way of the monk teaches the 12 styles of inner key manipulation that allows different abilities depending on the star sign that you choose. Simple, gives the basis of what it does. Description. All right, so here we go. In the Astral Sea, there is a sect of monks that harness the astral energy of the stars. To manipulate the world around them. Some monks of this order can use the astral energies to move objects with their mind using telekinesis. Telekinesis. But others can use the astral energies to affect the minds of those around them. This monk sect also specializes in special weapons that are forged from the stones of the stars and rocks of the astral sea itself. So this is a concept I'm going to come up with. Basically, it's kind of similar to a Jedi's lightsaber, but instead of an actual like beam weapon, which, I mean, if they want to do that, they can. But the concept is it's actually a weapon made of crystal. Like, that's the theme. You make it any kind of form of weapon you want. The design really doesn't matter because it's going to be similar in design or similar in choice when it comes to what you do with it. It's going to have the same base stats no matter what. So it's kind of like a spiritual weapon. It has the same base stats and it increases with you as you increase. For instance, if you choose, let's say, an amethyst. So maybe an amethyst power, you know, is force damage mostly. Most all amethysts, when you relate to like dragons, is going to be the concept of force damage. So how do you imply that? Okay, well, maybe as a astral amethyst as their weapon, you have a blunt weapon that causes force damage. So a hammer, a mace, a staff. So it's made of that, and when you strike, it creates an extra amount of force damage. There you go. It's simple but works. The only thing that you struggle with a thing like this is, will your weapon have reach? So if you wanted to make, say, a halberd or a glaive, or even a lance, those all have reach, which means they have a 10-foot distance. So if that's particularly what you want as your monk, then you have to kind of work with that in the D&D homebrew. We have to find a way to make it so that's an option. So the best way to do that is, it's a lot of work, but what you can do is you can give the options of the type of weapon. But you don't want people to have the bummed situation of, like, what if they want to dual wield? Okay, well then that means you have, two of the same attack. So maybe that's a level 6 ability. Choose to dual wield with your weapons, or choose to get, the expanded abilities of a long range. So you have options. You have a finesse weapon. You have a one-handed, a two-handed weapon. You have a reach weapon. So you have those as the options instead of specific weapons, because that way they can choose what it looks like. So that's how you go with that. Now, what you could also do is, there are a lot of weapons in D&D, but maybe you choose a set of weapons. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to choose a set of weapons that fits with the concept of what we're doing here. So we're going to go with a long sword, a short sword, a battle axe, a warhammer, a warhammer, a great axe, a great sword, a great maul. So we have all those kinds of options for the slashing types of damage you want. And then you also have the reach weapon. So we're going to put a glaive as an option as well, but that'll be the only one we put in, because that's pretty much the only one that's going to fit the concept that we're going with here. So we're going to have a limited number of weapons, but I think that's going to work out for us in the long run. So that's how we're going to do it. Also, it gives us different weapons for each type. So for the, finesse weapons, we have the short sword instead of any other form of weapon, instead of a rapier or something. So it's the force rapier kind of thing. Now, the other thing you could do is, we could make this exactly like Star Wars, and we could make it to where the weapons are going to be energy based. So the crystalline is actually just a focusing crystal, and you place it inside the hilt. So we do that concept, and then you can make it any design you want if you want to, that concept. But I feel like if we go that way, it's going to get a little weird, because then you're basically saying, what if I have an energy axe? That's not bad, but then you have to design how that concept will work. So is it a long shaft and then the axe comes out of the top of it? Or is it literally, it goes, the beam somehow summons itself into the form of an axe? Because then you're going more magical than scientific. So if you want this to be scientific, like a sci-fi fantasy, you're not going to probably want to do that. But there's ways you can get around that. There's ways you can do that. So that's the way we're going to go. Because I like the futuristic concept. So we're going to make the crystal a focusing crystal. And what it's going to do is that it's basically going to give us the concept that we want. It's going to be a long staff within it's going to be a short staff basically. So basically a wooden piece about yay big. And you could choose to make it multiple things. If you choose to have the reach weapon, you have a long staff, and that could turn into what you want it to be. So it's really up to you in that end. Because you also have to look at it this way. If you're making an entire weapon out of rock and stone, it's not going to look perfect. So you got to really think on how it's going to appear to your players. You want it to be realistic. And as much as a crystal blade actually works, because you could have a crystal sword, it's harder to have, say, a crystal staff, because you basically have a long 8-foot shaft of rock as your weapon, and that's a heavy piece of equipment. So you really got to go with kind of more the focusing concept, because also that means it relies on ki and your spellcasting modifier instead of your attack modifier, because that's what we're going with here. We're going with wisdom as our attack modifier. All right, so wisdom, obviously we're a monk. He doesn't cast spells, so we're not going to worry about that. Because the abilities you choose are going to determine what you can do. Now, technically, if we wanted to, there is a concept to which you could do just like with the elements. You could make it to where you cast spells. So, say I wanted to cast telekinesis. Boom. It already exists. All you gotta do is connect it to telekinesis and you're set. But here, let me look at the telekinesis thing. So this is where telekinesis comes into a problem. So, you can move these objects, yes. Well, it's a level 5 spell. That is a high level spell to give somebody at first level. But you can give a similar ability, is what I'm saying. Or give it to them later. Maybe they don't have telekinesis right off the bat. Who knows? Or maybe it's a smaller form of telekinesis. There are other ways you can do that. So we look at, say, the Psychic Sorcerer 5e. They have a concept similar, Aberrant Mind. So let's say you look at, well, that's not what I'm, where is it? I thought they had something, but I might be wrong. What? Oh, maybe it's is it Rogue? Psy Warrior. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Protective field, sign extra. Here we go. You can move an object or a creature with your mind. As an action, you target one loose object that is larger, smaller, or one willing creature other than yourself. If you can see the target and is within 30 feet of you, you can move it up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. Alternatively, if it is a tiny object, you can move it to or from your hand. Either way, you can move the target horizontally, vertically, or both. Once you take this action, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest, unless you have psionic energy die to take again. So this is an interesting concept. So it gives you that concept that you want from, say, a Jedi, but as a monk. So that's kind of where we're heading towards. But we're going to have multiple abilities because a Jedi has multiple abilities other than telekinesis. So that's what we're going to focus on. So really the options are not going to be options. You're going to get these automatically at certain levels because that way we kind of balance it out a bit. So what does a young Jedi have? A young Jedi has telekinesis abilities. Yes, we know that. So that's what we're going to focus on. All right. No, we don't need any spells. We're not doing spell casting. But we are doing spell casting, at least ability, on wisdom, because in case there's anything we have to use, we know what it is. They can cast spells. So maybe we do that, just as a caveat. So if people want to use this subclass with something else, it can work for them. All right, so that's what we're going to focus on. We don't have an avatar for it right this instant. But since it's a monk, it's not really going to be casting any spells, but we're going to say it is just for the, chance that we use it. Yeah, we don't have any spell casting, so we're not even going to worry about that. So we're just going to save changes as is. Way of the 12 stars, done, boom, bam. Now you start on the features. All right, so level 3rd features. So we edit the first one. Okay, so what are we going to call this? All right. So we're going to start with crystal weapon. There. Simple but effective. We're going to change a certain amount of things just because it kind of helps us. So that way you can, add to it. So way of the 12 stars feature. So this way, if you like the way DnDBeyond sets it up, you can kind of copy and paste some of their work, which is why they have this option. So that way you don't have to work everything in your own homebrew and type it all out. All right, so We don't need any of this. Well, actually, you know what? If we're going with this idea, then let's do it this idea. But this is something different. This is not... So this actually gives us a setup for something else. So actually, we are going to change this up again. So we are going to be... We're going to be this. Astral energy. So we channel the astral energy of the stars. I'm gonna get rid of this part. To magnify your physical prowess and your mental, let's say mental strength and your mental, no. Your physical and mental prowess. You gain the following benefits. All right, let's use theirs as an example. All right, let's go with mind trick. Come on, we're clearly making this what it is. So let's go off of what we know about the concepts that we're trying to go here with the Zodiac. All right, so Zodiac concepts. Now, I have an entire Zodiac concept already for my homebrew, and that's what I'm going to be using. But you can use the actual Zodiac if you want. So we go to my docs, and we go to, it's around here somewhere, Astral. Now I can go down, and I can show you what they are. So we have Potin, the Mammoth, Venator, the Sabertooth, Cog, the Behemoth, Riet, the Snake. So we're going to go with Riet, the Snake. Snake's Charm. So we're going to go with Snake's Charm because that's one of our star signs is the snake. Alright, if you fail a charisma, let's go with deception, not intimidation. Deception or persuasion. You can use your reaction to re-roll the check as you tap into the mighty presence, or as you type into the snake's let's see. The astral snake's devious energies. Perfect. It's simple. We've kind of taken from them, but we've also added our own options and concepts to it. Because what is the mind trick for? The mind trick is to deceive or persuade. All right, so we got our first one. Dragonic Strike. Okay, well, let's think about this. We just said that power, the mammoth. So the concept of the power of Potin, the mammoth. So mammoth strength. How about that? Seems to be the one that makes the most sense, right? The mammoth strength. When you damage a target with an unarmed strike, you change the damage type. Ah, so this is what we're going to be changing it. We're not doing elemental damage. We're just going to straight force. Because the idea is you're imbuing your strikes with the force, so to speak. So every hit is defended, and you're punching through it using the energies of the astral sea. So, boom. That's it. When you damage a target with an armor strike, change the damage type to force damage. Boom. Easy enough. Ah, Tongue of Dragons. We speak and read Dragonic. We're not going to need that, so this is going to be something completely different. So we're going to go with the telekinesis option that we were talking about. Alright, so, telekinesis. Which one is going to be the most appropriate for this situation? That's the question. Alright. So. Well, let's see. The Forge? No, not quite. The Hunter? Not bad. The Mother? The Spider? Very nice. You know, the manipulation of the webs, perhaps. The Roamer? The Wolf? Honor? The Eagle? It doesn't really fit. The Bull Field? The Kirin, you know, which is a electric unicorn for those who don't. The Whale, the Learned, the concept of intelligence, and Unity, the Hydra. None of those really fit our description, so let's find one that does. So I think the Mother, the Snake, the Manipulator, so to speak. So what is it? Maybe the Kirin. It is all magical, right? So let's do that one. Or, let's go with something else because we don't want to give telekinesis right off the bat, right? Alright, what about this? The Whale's Mind. You learn to speak and read and write. Any language of your choice as a bonus action. The effect of this lasts until you take a long rest. Or let's go with a short rest. Let's just say a rest. Till you take a rest. Boom. Alright, so these are early abilities. And now you come up here, and this will give you your essences, or the aspects inside the D&D Beyond character sheet. So when it shows up in your character sheet, these will be bolded because it says strong. So you put Snake's Charm, and you just edit where needed. So we turn this to Deception. Once this feature is failed, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So, that's still the same. Alright, and then we change this one. Mammoth's Strength. When you damage a target with an unmarked strike, you can change the type of damage to force damage. Health check, everyone. Make sure to take care of yourselves. Sorry. Force damage. Any language as a bonus action. The effect of this lasts until you take a rest. Let's go long rest, because sometimes having a short rest is inconvenient if it takes away your ability. Perfect. Oh, right, and we gotta change this too. So instead of Tongue of the Dragons, The whale's mind. And that represents our whale down here. Skull, the learned whale. Focuses on education and knowledge and magic. Perfect. And the reason I'm using the whales and the animals' names is because that way anybody can use this if they just want to do zodiac signs and not necessarily the names I gave them. Perfect. All right. And we save changes. Now, what we do astral star sign energy. So that way it's kind of understood that these are star signs. All right, now modifiers. Language, choose a language. That's easy enough to do. You can do that at any time. You just choose it and we can stick with that. And that way people can change it up if they want. Actions, here we go. Now this is where we have to use our little essence here. So whale's mind, we have to remember that. This is a reaction, so we want snake's charm. So we change the name. Snake's charm. And then the limited use is what gives you those little squares in the D&D Beyond. So that allows you to kind of have the options you need for editing. Or if you want to click it on your D&D Beyond sheet so you can keep track of how many times you've used it since it's a one-time use. Now, normally you'd have to go in here and change everything. But all you really have to do is, now that we've changed the name, you save, go back up here, you just simply copy and paste. Copy. And then you go down here, you wipe all that out, and you paste as is, because that way it still has this same setup. And then you just go up here to change the minor thing you have to do for the small description. So that goes to deception, and then everything else stays the same. And boom, you're done. All right, now Dragonic Strike. We switch that to Mammoth Strength. Easy enough. So this is actually going to show up as an action. So everything else stays the same. But what you can do then is, because we only have the one type, we can change it to force. And that way it registers in your aspect. And you could display it as an attack, which also makes it easier for you to see in your D&D Beyond character sheet. And then, similar as last time, delete and paste, just like that. Everything else stays the same. Now, of course, you can make this a bonus action if you want, because you could change it to that. But action is fine, because you can always say that's still an unarmed strike, which means you can just replace all your unarmed strikes with that when you do your bonus action unarmed strikes. So perfect. It'll display his attack as a force damage attack, and boom, you're good. All right. Now, all that's done. Language option is there. Literally everything is set now. So you just simply save the changes, and if we go into characters, I could just use one of these people I've been using. I use Professor Dushade. It's just a made-up name I made for my testing ground. So you go to manage characters and levels, exit out of what they have, and you go down to Monk, add class, go to level 3, Monster Tradition, go down to the Way of the 12 Stars. Astral Sign Energy, choose a language. Let's go with Sylvan. Anytime you want to change that, you just go simply into your abilities. And now, if we go in, boom, right here. Mammoth Strength, and it already has it registered as force damage. Perfect. And if you wanted to, you can go in and add and upgrade it each level. So if you want it to change, but it'll already automatically do that because of how the monk works. Because monks automatically up their unarmed strike. So we actually could edit that to fit that theme. So for instance, unarmed strike at level 3 is a 1d6. That's, you know, that's how it goes. So, but if you look at features and traits, go with martial arts. Okay, so it doesn't tell you in this, but if you go to a monk thing, it'll tell you in the monk subclass when it ups. And that way you can change it in your D&D Beyond sheet. So for instance, here we go. All right, so at 3rd level, it should still be a D4, but notice on my actions, I'm only level 3, but it still has unarmed strike set as a D6. So that doesn't seem right now, does it? But look. Yeah. So for some reason, I think it's because I'm using 2014 rules. I think they changed it. I'm not too sure though. But I believe they changed it in the new one to make it a D4 until level 5. Whereas in the original it was level 3. So, but either way, that's not important. What is important, however, is if you look at it, you can change it as it goes. So if we go to Monk 5e 2014, let's see. In fact, the easiest way to do this is if I have my book with me. That would be easier, because then I have the classic 2014 book. And I will get that right now, because we can look at that specifically and see if there is a difference, or if D&D Beyond is having a glitch. Which, let's be fair, these things can have glitches. Oh, I dropped everything. What will I do? Alright, so we go into our book. Player's Handbook. Here we go. So we go into the Player's Handbook, 2014 edition. And that's what I play on in my games. I still use 2014 edition. And we're already on Monk. I guess I was already there. Ah, so it is still accurate. In 5th, yeah, so at 5th level is when you should have a D6 for your martial arts die. So, something in our character sheet has caused this to already have a D6. I'm not too sure why. There's not much you can do about it, nor does it really matter all that much. But what this does mean, you go into here, you go into your actions, go into Mammoth Strength, and you go down. Oh, something fell. And you add a level override. So, at level 5, right? Level 5, dice count becomes a 1d6. That hasn't changed. And you just leave it at that. So at level 5, it'll automatically go to a d6. Save. And then you go back down, level override, add another one. Alright, so when's the next one? Next upgrade is at level 11. That's when it becomes a d8. So, go to level 11, 1, d8, and save. And then you just repeat that process for the next, I think it's 2. So, let's see. Nope, it just goes to a d10. Alright, so at 17th level, it becomes a d10. 17th level, 1, d10. And now, yours will edit and up just like the other one does. That way, it's the same as your martial arts die should be at each level. And save changes. Alrighty, so now normally you just save changes and it would go to the other thing, but that doesn't apply for when you're doing these edits. So what you want to do is go to cancel, not back up because it'll mess with your computer. Always click cancel, and that'll take you back to this area of your thing. So we're going to go to Breath of the Dragon and edit that to our new thing, which is going to be our crystal weapon. We're going to go crystal focus weapon. We're going to save that name so we remember what we're doing. All right, so we're changing the name here. Way of 12 stars. Channel destructive waves of energy, yada yada. We're not going to do any of that. So we can get rid of all that. So, by choosing a crystal focus, you are granted a unique weapon that counts as your monk weapon. Each crystal grants a different damage type and extra effect. So now we go through a list. Hi Michael, welcome. This is a unique stream for us. I know, it's crazy. So many sounds. What do we do? What do we do? Welcome, Michael. This is a bit of a unique stream. I don't usually do these. In fact, I think this is the first time I've ever done it on stream. I am showing how to create a homebrew subclass in DnDBeyond. So if you have any interest in D&D at all, or making your own subclass, please watch. But if not, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here to talk too. All right. So now we make the list. We go down here. And we have a list. All right, so what are the main types of crystals available in D&D is the question. Because that's what you really got to focus on, because it's going to be items that they can find in-game. All right, so what is an item that there is? There's amethyst. We know that. We know there's garnets. So it's going to be based a lot on the crystal dragonborn concepts as well. All right, and then emerald. Now, all these things you can argue are not, findable, but they are. And you can also argue that they are findable in space if you're doing an astral campaign. So garnet, emerald, and then, what is it? Oh no, it's not garnet, it's topaz. Topaz, sorry. So topaz, and then sapphire. I can't spell. So amethyst, topaz, emerald, sapphire, sapphire, sorry. We're going to go with a unique one because it's not in the Dragonborns, but it really should be. It's just because fire is so common. We're going to go with ruby. And then what's the last one for them? It's just crystal, right? So we're going to change that. We're going to go with something else because just saying crystal Dragonborn is very vague. They're the radiant energy ones. So we're going to go with diamond, because diamond is kind of the same thing. Dragon, dragon, rock the dragon, Dragon Ball Z. So we're going to go with diamond on this one. I know it's a bit expensive for a focusing crystal, but it's really the only way I can see having a concept that works with radiant damage. I know technically the, what do you call it? The crystal Dragonborn have crystal as one of their options. So if you look at it, let's, crystal Dragonborn. Gem Dragonborn, sorry, gems. So they just have crystal. Just crystal. It's very vague. That could be a lot of different things. So it's not really great for what we're going with specific focusing crystals. So we're not going to do that. So these are the ones we based off of, and then we added ruby, because ruby is actually in the game of dragons, but it is the unique dragon of the creator of Emerald or of gem dragons. If you look at the lore, called Sordie, S-O-R-D-I-E, I believe, is the goddess of crystal of gem dragonborns, and she is a ruby dragon that breathes fire. So we're going to add ruby into this as well. All right, so types we're going to focus on. Okay, so here we go. Amethyst. That's going to be our force damage. All right. Topaz, that's necrotic, if those who don't know. So necrotic damage. Emerald. That is psychic damage. I know it's a little weird to have psychic damage in a weapon, but that actually makes it more fun. Think of it this way. You cut somebody and the energies flow into their body, which causes them to have a psychological impact into their brain. There's your psychic damage. All right. Sapphire. That's cold-based damage. Ruby, as we just said, is fire damage. And Diamond is radiant damage. Now, here's the question. Hey, what's up, Buta? Welcome to a very original concept for me. I've never done this on stream before, but I really wanted to just for fun. Mostly, I'm a D&D DM as my hobby and my main kind of focus on my writing. So I wanted to show everybody how to kind of get into the concept of D&D homebrew, but simplistic. So I took something that already existed. I'm using the Way of the Ascended Dragon, and I'm editing it to create my own homebrew for a Astral Sea campaign as a monk called the Way of the 12 Stars. So it uses the concept of star signs to give you different energies and abilities, and also star rock to create weapons, concepts. Monkey! Exactly. Zero understands the monk. But yes, so we are doing a monk subclass right now for a space campaign. So it's kind of a mixture of original ideas of like star signs for energy, but also a little bit of Star Wars, because it's kind of using those concepts to create weapons, using crystal focuses to create an energy-based weapon for a monk. That way you have a monk weapon that works as a using your spell modifier damage, which is wisdom, versus your dexterity. So if you wanted to be a little bit unique. Oh, absolutely not. They don't have to, but I'm just doing it for fun because I have multiple campaigns I use. So I have 2 original worlds. I have the astral space I created, not astral sea, astral space. So it is not the same thing because it's not like you can breathe in it. It's actually space, but it's still the concept of the astral sea where there is knights and monks and things like that. So it's kind of a mixture because I like space, but I don't like the astral sea. I don't like the idea of you floating on a bunch of energy waves on a concept like that. I like spaceships. So it's kind of a mixture of the two. But yeah, I have other subclasses as well for my non-space world, as well as I could show you guys. And that's all stuff that focuses on more fantastical stuff like fantasy. So for example, if I go over here, go to D&D Beyond My Creations, now I go to subclasses, you will see here. So I have this one. I have 12 for my Digimon campaign. Awesome. Well, I'm really glad you like it. Ah, yes, that's coming up next, the key points. So keep watch. So, so this is one I did for my Digimon campaign. So you can see everything's focused on Digimon, and I've created all Digimon homebrew spells. So that's what this uses. So ability charge, heavy strike. None of those are actual spells in this game, but they're in Digimon. And then here's my published stuff for my main campaign on not Astral Set. Chemist, a rogue subclass. It uses medicine as a healer class for rogue, but you can also use it as a poisoner. So you can use it 2 ways. You can be a toxic fighter or a healer for your party. So yeah, you can do a bunch of things. This is my favorite one I've made for the Bard, because my homebrew world is a bit of a steam world, a steam kind of steampunk. So College of Film, it's a literal subclass of Bard that focuses on using a camera to create illusion spells. So the camera pictures you take, and eventually you get a rolling camera, like the old-fashioned movies where you just you're constantly recording. And you use those to create illusions. And then you also have other aspects like camera flash for a blinding effect or things like that. But yeah, so you can do anything with D&D Beyond if you're creative enough. Like, you just gotta focus on what you want out of that subclass. And then you can still keep D&D 5e in your base. Because let's face it, if you're doing D&D, that is what you want if you're doing 5e, is you want it to stay in that realm. So the subclass can be anything. Exactly, just like Oz. Yes, exactly like the Wizard of Oz, who used his knowledge of our world when he got to Oz to really trick and mess with people. It's the same concept. I always liked that they did that in those newer movies that have come out, like Oz the Great and Powerful, and then the newest movie with Wicked. Is Oz is not a wizard. He's a genius from our world. Actually, he was a circus performer, but the concept was he knew how to use his brain and his technology to fool the average Joe in the land of Oz to make it magic. So, yes, for your question, Zero, you don't have to make everything related to space, but you can. All right, so here we're back to the crystal. Now, we have the basic abilities already for creating energy-based weapons. But here's the question. What crystal do you think would be good if we wanted to, say, make an acid aspect? Maybe you want your crystal to deal acid damage, but if it's an energy-based weapon, how do you go about that? Like, how do you put that into your lore? Now, poison might be a little bit more doable, because maybe the energy has toxins in it. Who knows? But that's why you don't see me putting acid or poison damage, even though it's a common damage type for dragons. It just doesn't fit in the concepts you want to do for an energy-based weapon. Now, if we were doing crystalline weapons, which is what I thought of earlier, where you have, say, a crystal sword, then you could do acid, or you could do poison. Or poison specifically. Acid's a little harder, but you could have crystals that have toxins inside the crystal. There's examples in real life of our world of crystals that are hazardous to our health if we are cut by them. So you could do that, but we're going with kind of more of an energy-based theme here. Because the more I think about it, making a weapon out of crystal sounds cool. Like a crystal sword really is cool. But when you get to the bigger weapons, say you wanted to make a crystal axe, that thing is going to be heavy as heck, because you have to find a way to refine the crystal enough to make it a weapon, which means it's going to be heavy rock. But if we do a focused crystal, like, I don't want to copy, but like Star Wars, then you can do any based hilt. You can make a hilt any size. You can make it a long shaft hilt, or you can make it a hand hilt. That can be any kind of weapon. You can make that a crystal. You can make that an energy sword, an energy axe, because the energy could be in a focused beam. That's what I'm going for more right this. But I do like the concept of crystallized weapons. So it's really just how you want to play it. Because there's also, you look at it this way, with amethyst, you have to be magical in that aspect instead of science fiction. So for you, Zero, if you wanted more fantasy than science, I would go the crystal route. So for amethyst, you have an amethyst hammer. So you focus amethyst on blunt weapons. So every time you hit someone with an amethyst weapon, it blows them away with the force damage. That's what you can go with for that kind of fantasy aspect. It's kind of magical embedded in the crystal. If we're going with this concept, which is energy-based weapons, then you have energy that have like a force of energy. Every time you strike, it blasts them. So it's like an energy explosion. That's kind of what I'm going with the force damage of the amethyst. So you could go either or. Now, honestly, I'm going to actually change my route here, because it's hard, except in-game, to describe a focus energy. So instead of a crystal focus weapon, we're actually just going to change this to crystal weapons. And now we've gone from sci-fi to fantasy. But it's still the same concept. And now if you wanted to, so let's think of a cool crystal that's in DnDBeyond, in D&D. So if you look up DnD gems, gemstones, D&D gemstones. Here we go. Now these are ones you can find. Okay, so we need. All right, here we go. Gem prices. Here we go. There are opals, emeralds, sapphires, diamonds, moonstones are a thing, amber. So we have a few things. I'm gonna go because it kind of fits the theme of being in space. I think we should go with bloodstone, or moonstone. But at the same time, I'm also open to the concept of, say, garnet is another one, or jade. But we already have emerald. So if we have emerald, having jade is kind of the same feel. So you want something that kind of goes off the coloration concepts. So let's think about it. What we don't have? Onyx. That's a straight up just piece of black rock. I like that idea for a poison weapon. So onyx. And that'll be poison damage. Because the concept of acid is harder, because acid is a liquid. So having a rock that sprays liquid is a little tricky. But poison, there's plenty of examples of things being toxic in your blood. So the mineral could be toxic. So onyx, in this particular case, could be a toxic rock. So if you get cut by this onyx, it actually causes poison into your system. So we're going to go this way. That way we have all kind of coverage of damage. The only one we can't do is acid, because that's harder to kind of manipulate into the concept. All right, so these are our items: amethyst, topaz, emerald, sapphire, ruby, diamond, and onyx. So now you go into what it does. So for a force damage weapon, all right, for a simple description, on a hit, the target is pushed 10 feet away in the direction of your strike. Perfect. Force damage, it fits, and you can give, you know, kind of cheesy with that if you are somebody who's next to a cliff. No. I mean, he kind of is, because let's face it, everyone who uses Onyx, you know, I mean, I love Onyx, but he's not the greatest of Pokemon. At least not till the Evilite was invented. And then he's actually more able to be used. In fact, I think if you fight one of the Elite Four in later gens, one of them has an Onyx with an Evilite. Or maybe it was a ROM hack. I think it was a ROM hack. All right, necrotic damage. So on a hit, the target must make a, let's say, let's go with wisdom saving throw, or be or become, yeah, let's make a wisdom saving throw, or they become frightened of you until the end of your next turn. So now here comes the fun part of D&D Beyond. Right? Well, especially if you give him cheesy abilities like Rest, Sandstorm, and then you give him like Toxic or something that just messes with people. Like, you can really make Onyx cheesy as a defense tank with Evilite on. Alright, so here's the fun thing. Now comes the typing. So if you do condition, and you put the little brackets around it, go to the other side, and you remember the backsplash. Condition. Now, when you go back into this, in the app, in the D&D Beyond app, it'll show this as a glowing frightened status. And that'll take you to the conditions area where you can find out what frightened does. All right. Psychic damage. On a hit, target must make a wisdom saving throw or take an additional, let's say, or take additional psychic damage equal to your proficiency modifier or your wisdom modifier, because that's the spell casting we're going off of. We don't need a, or take additional psychic damage equal to your wisdom modifier. All right. On a hit, the target must succeed. Oh, I should have just been doing that from the end. Must, because that really specifies. Must succeed, because making one doesn't necessarily mean. So must succeed a wisdom saving throw. This is a constitution saving throw, or have their speed drop to 0 until the start of your, or no, until the end of your next turn. So the reason I'm putting it as the end, not the start, is because if you do it at the start, you're going to be very cheesy and your players aren't going to like it. It's just like with the monk ability to do Stunning Strike. If you were doing Stunning Strike at every turn, you could lock them into a stunned status. That makes it really unfair and unfun for the game, because not only does that kind of miniaturize any threat that your enemies might have for your players, players like threat. They like the idea of there being a threat. So if all they do is keep stun striking and stun striking and stun striking, basically making their opponent never move, it's going to get boring because they're going to be like, oh, he's got nothing on me. But if you make it at the end of the turn, that means they have to change their strategy each turn, because they can't just keep sitting there and stunning him. So it's all about how you word it, which changes the entire play style of the fight. Now, some people might like that. Maybe somebody wants to just sit there and stun strike somebody forever. But you don't want that, because what if you have player versus player, which does happen in D&D? The other player is going to get ticked if they are just getting stun strike the whole time. Yeah, exactly. If you fail this, your mother's going to suffer, man. Your mother's going to suffer. You stepped on that crack, you just broke your mom's back. All right, fire damage. Here's the fun one. So fire damage. On a hit, target must use, or here, the target, becomes burned by your strike and takes an additional, or takes additional fire damage equal to your wisdom modifier at the beginning of their turns. And then the target must use an action to put out the fire. Easy. Now, radiant damage is going to be the tricky one. Now, the easy answer for radiant damage is they can become blinded. But my issue with that is that basically means you're going to be blinded, because if your weapon is shining bright like a star in your eye, you're both going to be blind and it's going to be a really bad weapon. So how do we make radiant damage have an additional effect? So my thought process, I'm not too sure how this is going to work. But if you look at it, yeah, Wraith trait. Oh, interesting. Now that's an idea, but the question is, what kind of ability score would really make a difference if you're using radiant damage? So would it be, say, your constitution? You know, because it's, you know, the radiance inside your body is causing you to lose your resilience. Or do we do it more of a, say, a charm effect? So the radiance causes you to have a weakness in charisma all of a sudden. So you could go with that path. We're going to skip that for now because I got to think on that. We're going to go poison because poison's easy. On a hit, the target must succeed a Constitution saving throw or be poisoned until the end of your next turn. Now what the poison status does, so if we put the brackets again, condition, oh, we forgot something, didn't we? Always got to remember the backslash, because otherwise it won't register. Now, for those who don't know what that does, first I'm going to save it, because sometimes your browser will log you out if you leave it for too long, so you want to save often. Otherwise, you have to redo all of that. So if we look at conditions, you can see what poison damage, or what poison does. Now, it's not overly powerful, but it's not bad. So for instance, here. Poison has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. What that does is it gives the player who uses the poison weapon advantage, like basically protection against their opponent during that round. So it basically gives them a way to kind of avoid damage the next round, which is helpful. And it also helps them against ability checks. So say that person is trying to make an acrobatics check to get away from you or something like that. It's at disadvantage as well. So it's not a bad thing to do. So here's the other thing I was thinking of. For Radiant, what if we went for Paralyzed? Because it could be you're just incapacitated, can't move or speak. So something in the Radiant energy, like, distracted you. That's also an option. Or perhaps we go with... See, here's the blinded thing. Attack rolls have... against them have advantage, and theirs has disadvantage. That's when blinded comes in handy. So the question is, do we add the blinded effect? Because it's a concept of when you strike, a burst of energy strikes in their face. Downside is that means you could be blinded. So it's a double-edged sword. But I kind of like that idea because it's kind of funny and goofy. Because the concept is, you're basically, Or, here's another idea. An option you can do is if they specialize in that weapon, each one of them has resistance to its own ability. For instance, if you use a topaz weapon, you have resistance or advantage on frightened effects. So because you've trained in a weapon that causes fear, you are strengthened against being frightened. Same with Radiance. Because you train with a bright, shining weapon all the time, you have resistance, or you have advantage on the saving throw against being blinded. Or maybe you have immunity to blinding. Because you've been using this weapon so long, your eyes have adjusted to bright light. I can see that happening. I mean, I don't know if it is true, but I imagine people who live in bright sun all the time have better vision in the sun than other people. Or they're blind as heck because their eyes have been destroyed by, the sunlight. Who knows? You just got to kind of look at that. So, on a hit, your weapon exudes a bright light that causes the target to become blinded if they fail a dexterity saving throw. Because the concept of being blinded is you have to kind of block your eyes. That's the dexterity. How quickly can you shut your eyes in the moment of blinding? If they fail a dexterity saving throw, thank you so much, Buta! Oh, we appreciate it. We here at Shield Studio love all of our hoardlings. We are dragons ourselves, so we hoard our friends in a hoard of treasure. And you are our treasure. If you can't tell, we are a married couple. If you buy our little chibis, my wife is currently at work, but, I do some streaming too, mostly during the early week. But welcome, welcome. All right, so that's the way we're going. And don't forget, condition. Because that way anybody who's new to D&D can look at this. And that way, if they don't know what the blinded condition does, it'll show on their character sheet. Also, just so you know, I'm not bad at spelling, I just type too fast. Alright, and we don't need the martial arts die thing. And we don't need this feature thing because it's based on the weapons you choose. Okay, so here comes the hard part. For those who don't know, this is when being in D&D Beyond is a pain in the butt. Thank you. Upside is we can get rid of this because we're not using a breath weapon. So we can get rid of these level scaling aspects from the previous thing we were using. So we can delete these. All right. We don't need the Breath of the Dragon anymore either. Now, you might be asking, why didn't you just use that to make an action? Because we're going to have to make separate actions for each choice. So we're actually going to do choices for this part of the subclass, which is going to be annoying, but it's something you have to do. All right. So here's something I'm also going to do. We don't need proficiency, but we do need our DC save. So we're going to save that. Copy. We're going to put it down here temporarily so we can reuse that up there later. We don't need our proficiency because we're not using that. We're using our wisdom save. So we can get rid of that. And we can get rid of the scale value since we just got rid of that. All right. And we get rid of these. And you just copy. And you paste into the snippet. Now, I know it looks like a lot, but you'd be surprised how useful that is. All right, so we do a little thing here. Choose a crystal type weapon. All right, here we go. Now here comes the hard part. So what you want to do is, one, you no longer need these conditions because these won't show up in the snippets. They'll only show up in the description. So you get rid of the snippets of frightened because it won't show up. It'll just show as frightened, regardless of what you do. So you can get rid of a lot of these condition aspects. And now, what you can do is, just so it's easy and you don't have to do it for every single one, you can go up here and type this in. So it's DC for these abilities and then you put in this little snippet we took. Copy. There. Now this will show up and automatically go off your character sheet of what your DC save is, so you can always remember it. There we go. DC for these abilities is... that'll be your wisdom save based on wisdom. So that's what it'll use, is use your wisdom score to create a save DC. And that's what you want. Now, when it comes down to over here, where it says equal to your wisdom modifier, here's another one. So you paste this plain text again, but you don't need to write DC anymore. And you don't need to do save anymore. What you do is ability score, if I recall correctly. Now, if you are confused, there's a place you can look this up. So snippet codes for D&D Beyond. So you can do a lot of different things. But this little front one gives you a lot of options right off the bat. So you want modifier. So modifier, copy. You can get rid of this now. So it wasn't ability score, that was my bad, it's modifier. And you can put it right here at the end, so it automatically puts it in. Paste as plain text, so you don't get that weird off thing that it had in the other previous thing. And now you change this str to just WIS for wisdom. And that will automatically connect to your character's wisdom modifier. And then copy, because there's another one down here. And that way you always have it available. And boom, just like that. Always want to make sure to save your changes. Now, here's the fun one. If you go to this, which is the description, I should say, of your okay, so the easiest way, and then go to subclasses. Now it'll show up in this little description here. I believe it'll be number 2 because it says way of the 12 stars. Now see what we did here? Now deception is here because we had the little snippet. Frightened is here. Blinded is here. Poisoned is here. Perfect. But now if you want to see where the wisdom modifier comes in, you go to this. You simply reload because we're still on the same thing. We're the variant human monk. And if you go to features and traits, go down until you get to crystal weapon. Now look, it has it right here, +4 wisdom modifier, because that is our wisdom right now. So it automatically registers in your own wisdom modifier. And the DC has also been altered to match your save DC, which is equal to your wisdom and your proficiency bonus. So we've succeeded. Now it'll show up on the character sheet when you create it. So we save that because I don't remember if I saved it. Now comes the hard part. First, go to options and click yes, it has options. That'll be required. Now you couldn't do multiple level stats. So if you want to do all the options at different levels, you could do that. But because we're just doing one choice that'll last throughout, you don't have to do this. But for instance, if I wanted to do, say, level 1, comma, and then at level 4, or actually we get this subclass at level 3, so this should show up at level 3, and this will show up at level 6. So now that option won't show up until you get to level 6 in your character sheet, where you can then edit it and click it. But we don't need to do that with this one, so we're not going to worry about that. So save, because it has to register, you have options. Now go to options, add an option. So first, name. All right. Amethyst. Amethyst crystal weapon. I am terrible at spelling amethyst for some reason. All right. Now you add the description. This weapon deals force damage on a hit with this weapon. The target is pushed back 10 feet in the direction of the strike. Notice I didn't put a saving throw on this one. You might be asking why. It's the concept of, because it doesn't do a lot, this is just an automatic thing. Basically, the force of the power of the weapon is so strong that even a strong individual like a mountain giant is still pushed back by its impressive ability. So it also gives a kind of an overpowered ability, but notice they don't get any other feature of that. It's just a 10-foot push. So it's really how you use it that matters if it's OP or not. That's why I'm not making this a saving throw. And sometimes you'll see that in D&D. Sometimes things don't get a saving throw, they just happen. And it's part of it. It's part of the lore. It's part of the creation. So don't be afraid to do that if you think it works better for your creation. All right. Doesn't require, but you want to click is granted. So basically this will automatically show up, and it's as you click it, you're set. Now this has aspect of the worm. We haven't gotten rid of that yet, so you just ignore that because that won't be there later. But you don't require a class level for this because it's just going to be an option there. So just do create option. All right. Now you go down to actions. Weapon. Name. Amethyst. Why can't I spell this? Why am I having such a hard time spelling amethyst? There we go. Amethyst weapon. Ability score. So this will be the ability score that the action uses. We want this to be wisdom, because that way it uses your spell modifier to damage, not your dexterity or your other one. Because that way it doesn't matter what type of weapon it is, you're proficient with it. You click proficient. Attack range, melee. Now, here's the little fun thing you can do. Down the road, if we want to, we can make it a ranged weapon. We can give that as an option. If we wanted to, we could do that right now. We could have two separate amethyst weapons, amethyst or melee weapon, amethyst ranged weapon, and that gives somebody an option if they wanted to do that. So the question is then, what do you do with that? Do you make it for every one of them? You would have to. If you want to give a fair option, you'd have to do that. But what you can do is you can put two actions. One for ranged, one for melee, and then they just choose what they want to use. Here's the thing. If you have the ability to use your key to alter the form of your weapon, what's to say you can't alter the crystalline itself? By using your key and focusing, shaping and reshaping the weapon into the form you want it to. So you go from weapon, melee, and all of a sudden your staff bends and produces a small crystalline thread and creates a bow. Or perhaps it becomes a shaft and becomes a crossbow. Their choice, but the base damage will still be the same and the range will be the same. So it's really just a creativity of the player. If they want to have a crystalline crossbow or a bow, it doesn't matter. Either way, it's going to do the same range. We'll do a generalized range in between. So it won't be as far as the longbow of 600 feet for disadvantage. Maybe we'll go with 200 range to 400 range. It's that middle area, which I believe is about a little bit better than a short bow. So we could do that. For this one, because there's no save, we don't have to worry about that. But down the road, we will. So dice count 1. All right, now here comes the question. What are we going to do with these weapons? What makes it worth using them over your martial arts die? But here's the thing. It's going to have your martial arts die. That's the trick. We are going to make this based off your martial arts die. So right now, at base level, it'll be a D4. And that'll raise to a D6, a D8, and a D10. So you'll never get to, say, a great axe, but you can get to what a monk usually uses, which is a staff that has a D10 if you use it with both hands. So this also gives you the option if you wanted to dual wield. It's not too overpowered, at least not yet. Exactly. And unlike your unarmed strikes, which only do force damage, that's what we put at the beginning. Based on astral energy, you can do force damage with a punch. That makes sense. So technically, you already have force damage if you don't want to use an amethyst weapon. You already have that just being in here. But that's why the benefit of the weapon comes in. Pushing. That free 10-foot push might be worth using over your unarmed strike. And actually, we are going to change one thing. I'm going to change it to a D6. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with a D6, go to a D8, then go to a D10. Because D4 really isn't necessary, and plus that means you have a better weapon at the start of the game versus your D4, which you'll be stuck with of martial arts for the first 4 levels. So when you get to level 3, you automatically get a D6 weapon to replace. That way you have a little bit better for the next 2 levels you're stuck in. Because at level 3 and level 4, you're still going to be stuck with a D4. Unless, of course, you have the glitch that this game seems to be doing where you have a D6, which doesn't make sense. Because it's supposed to be a D4. Because if you look at Monk, martial arts, you can roll a D4 in place of normal damage of your unarmed strike or monk weapon. What that does is basically means you can replace your monk weapon stats with your martial art die. So the reason this is so good is if you were using a dagger as a martial art, then technically your dagger could do a D10 once you get to level 17 as a monk. That's why a lot of people use weapons as monks, because then you get the benefits of that. Like for instance, if you were a rogue and a monk subclass, so multi-class, you got to 3 levels in rogue and 17 levels in monk, then you have a finesse dagger that gives you sneak attack damage. Not bad. So that's where the benefit comes in. That's why this weapon is your monk weapon. All right. So now we go back to here. It turns it to a D6. Now this fixed value is the bonus that comes to it. You already have a bonus with it because of ability score and proficient. However, this is a monk weapon and it's a magical weapon. And everybody knows in D&D, if you have a magic weapon, it's an automatic +1. So we're going to add a 1 there. And that's going to add to its attack roll and damage roll. There's the other benefit of using this. And this we change to force, display as an attack, and is affected by martial arts. That's all true. All right. It has no range. You don't have to worry about that. Activation type, this will be an action. And then for this weapon counts as your monk weapon. Weapon deals force damage. And if you want to, you can go into effect. You know, if there's a save, there's not a save, so we don't have to worry about that. But if you wanted to, you could. And you would put on the effect pushed. So, all right. Weapon deals force damage. On a hit, the target is pushed back 10 feet in the direction of the strike. So that way you can't go, I hit him, and then he goes backwards. You know, whatever way you hit him is the way he's going to fly. So you can't try to be cheesy with it by saying, I hit him here, but he went left. That's not how this is going to work. So that's also the restriction to make it a little bit more acceptable. So, force damage, snippet. Target is pushed back 10 feet. Simple and perfect. Now here comes the fun part. What we did earlier, level override. So, at level 5, that's when it usually becomes a D8 weapon. We're not going to do this because it's just going to be a D6 weapon this whole time. What we are going to do is go to the level 11 switch. That goes up to a 1D8. And now it'll change the dice at level 11 to match. Because look, level 11 monk becomes D8. Perfect. But we can be having a little fun. If we want to make this a little bit better and more worth it, because a D6 isn't a ton of damage. Plus you could use a staff and get to a D8 if you wanted to. So we have to make it worth using this over a real weapon. So we are going to change this to a D8 at level 5, which means you're really only getting your base weapon for a little while. And then it goes to a D8 when you get your D6 of a monk attack. Not bad. It also makes it easier for those who want to multi-class into this. All right, add another one. At level 11, this becomes a D10. Ooh. Now comes the fun part, because I'm going to surprise you with what I didn't tell you I was going to do. I'm going to make it a D12 at level 17, which is crazy for a monk. So if you actually stick with the monk the whole way, your energy or your crystal weapon will be your strongest weapon, like a great axe. Not bad, especially because it's one-handed. All right, that's also something you gotta keep in mind. And is considered one-handed. Now you have to put that in the description because it won't let you put it in the weapon. So you just kind of have to do that. Because sadly it won't let you say what kind of weapon it is. Now you can do that in the actual sheet. Like when you're on your character sheet, you can edit a little extra and say this is that. But unfortunately it doesn't always work that way. So, but yeah, we're done. We have our 3-level override, 1d8, 1d10, 1d12. It starts as a d6. Very powerful, which makes it all the more worth it. So that's what we want when a subclass. We want it to be worth choosing. All right. So now we have an action added in by choosing this option. All right. Now if you go back, save changes, and we go to our homebrew, manage characters and levels. Level down, because that way it reloads your subclass to make the changes. Crystal weapon is now there. Amethyst crystal weapon. Boom. Now we've chosen that. Just choose that for funsies. And this is all in the description as well now. Now, if you go to your character sheet, Amethyst weapon is registered right here. And look, automatically adds your wisdom save or your wisdom modifier and a +1. So look, you have a +6 to hit now, and you have a +5 to damage. So boom, you have your very powerful Amethyst weapon that also counts as your monk weapon. And you have your little description right here. Now, if you wanted to customize, you technically can, and you can add to hit bonuses and stuff if you wanted to, but you don't have to. But that's the fun of this game, or this D&D Beyond app, is you can do a little. And then Amethyst weapon, force damage, target is pushed back 10 feet, one-handed. Simple, that's your snippet. And you're done. Now notice this is only a +1. That's because our dexterity is only a +1. So to hit is a +3 because of our proficiency, but you only have a +1 because of the dexterity. So again, unarmed strike, not looking so strong. Even though you get that force damage, that's really all it does. So down the road though, that can change. We'll see that when we get to level 6 abilities. But unfortunately, we are not done yet. So now comes the next part. We have Amethyst. Now, technically, I really put these out of order when it comes to alphabetically, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to stick it to how we have written here, even though it's not alphabetical. So we're going to Topaz next. So you add the option. Now, here's my trick to this. So you go back, go into your Amethyst crystal weapon, copy. Now this is just a quick thing, is like if you just want to add a little less time to your day. Topaz weapon. I believe that's what we call it, right? Topaz crystal weapon. Oh no, it's just amethyst weapon. Okay, so we just say topaz weapon. And then you do paste. This weapon deals necrotic damage. And then you just change this string. On a hit with this weapon, the target must make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened. And we type in the condition again. That way it shows up in the character creator. And just like that. Until the end of your next turn. Is granted. Create option. Oh, my wife sent me a picture they're doing with her lady friends at our church. She created a Lego like statue of love in words. It's adorable. Oh, my wife. Okay, this is gonna be weird, but my wife is requesting a picture of me because for her work, I register in it sometimes, and they want a picture for my profile at the job. So I need to take a selfie, as weird as that sounds. Make it look very professional, so I'll take off this. Boom. Now we double check to make sure it's appropriate. And then we send it on over. There. Sorry about that, everybody. We must work, right? Everyone's got a job, so doing what we can with that regard. Alright, back to where I was. Alright, so here comes the hard part. Now we have all that. We go to actions. We do this again. Weapon. Topaz weapon. Wisdom. Proficient. 1. D6. 1. Save type. This is a wisdom save. Melee. Effect on save success. Not frightened. Effect on save fail. Target is frightened. Display as attack. And we add necrotic. And action. And also because we used, that's going to use our wisdom score as the save DC as well. So it'll also register that. All right. Now here's what we're going to do. So first we're going to add the overrides, and I'll put the low angle. I'm bad at taking pictures. Oh. I'm really bad at paying attention to what my wife says. She wanted me to send it on Discord, not by text. Oops. Oh, I'm so in trouble. All right, level 5. 1 D8. Level override. Level 11. 1 D10. And then level 17, 1 D12. Now you could go crazy if you really wanted to be that way. You could do it as a D20 or a D100. You could be like an overpowered creator if you want to just make your players feel like gods. Alrighty. So we save these changes, we go back, and now you notice I did put crystal in there. I gotta change that later. I spelled crystal right? I did not. There we go. If we go over here, this will have that little aspect we want to put in. We want to make it easier on ourselves just for the base. Save changes. Go back. Edit topaz. Add crystal. Edit. Paste as plain text, because you don't necessarily want the same modifier as it had in the previous one in case there's an issue. So, and then you just add some changes. Necrotic on the hit. Target is frightened if they fail a wisdom saving throw. And then, of course, this one. Necrotic damage. One-handed. Target is frightened. Until the end of your next turn. Perfect. We save changes. We go back. Now, here's the fun part. Copy. Because now we have another one that's going to require a save. At option. Emerald crystal weapon. Paste. This weapon does psychic damage. On a hit with this weapon, the target must make a wisdom saving throw or take an additional or take additional psychic damage equal to your wisdom modifier. So we don't need the end until end of next turn either. Now what you can do is put the snippet here so you can have your wisdom modifier right where it needs to be. So if you do this again, so wisdom modifier psychic damage, and then add your 2 little dashes, not that one, modifier wisdom, and boom. That way, in case you need the little, you know, pick me up to like, hey, what was my wisdom modifier again? So just like that. All right. And then the easy part, copy. Now we can just use this in the action description. Weapon. Snippet. Psychic damage. One-handed. On. Hit. Target. Takes. And then you add in that wisdom modifier thing again. Modifier wisdom, and then psychic damage, or you do additional. All right, so name, emerald, weapon, ability score, wisdom, proficiency, melee, wisdom. Now, here's the other thing. Technically, you really don't have to put a wisdom save. It could just be because this is a psychic weapon, it deals that extra psychic damage. Because it's not a lot of psychic damage. So maybe that's the way we go. It doesn't require too much editing. You just take away the wisdom requirement. Honestly, because the best you can do is usually about an extra 5 points of damage, that's not bad, to be honest. So if we wanted to take this away, and we just simply have it as melee, 1, dice count 6, X value 1, damage type psychic, and then action. Could just sit it that way. But the problem is you really can't add anything else like that. You can't add any additional damage. You can do fixed value, but you're not going to be able to add the bonus damage of here's that. So you're always going to have to calculate that in when you roll. That's the downside. Additional damage can't be added into the attack concept. So you just go back to the wisdom. Effect on save success. No additional damage. Then effect on save. Pop up. Modifier. Wisdom. Pop up. Psychic damage. And boom, you're all set. Then don't forget to add your overrides, because you're going to have to go back if you do. So, the important thing is to try, 6. 1, D8. Add level override. Level 11, 1, D10. Add a level override. 1, D12. and save. And boom, bada boom, you got 3 options already written down. Now this is what I was saying, if you wanted to... Oh, yes, by the way, if he's still here, I don't believe, but Buta, if you're still here, Shield Studio, the one typing right now, is my wife. She's checking on the stream right now, so... Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of room for customizing, especially because it's a generalized weapon, which means you can make it look like anything you want. I mean, it's one-handed. If you wanted to, you could just say it's a one-handed great axe just for, you know, showsies, because you want to have fun with that. Go for it. That's the fun of when you set something up like this, is it gives your players a lot of leeway. It can allow them to be as creative as they want. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more to go. All right. But for now, we're going to stop and go to the next part so I can show you what comes next. So I'll go back to that later, but we have those. Now we have the next part, level 6 boost. All right. So for this one, I'm going to go back to our original one. I'm going to copy and paste, because this is a concept of level 6 is that I want to do. Is that I get different ability, you get different add-ons depending on the situation you're in. So your force, your energy abilities from your astral energy increase. And then you just change some things. So this is a 6th level, so 6th level way of the 12 stars. And we'll do astral star energy improvement, because that way it focuses on letting you know that it's connected to the previous one. Or you simply, because it's different energies this time, you go with something else, like say, what's a good word for expansion? Like increased power, overload. No. Let's just go with expansion. And now we also can go back and copy and paste this to get that little snippets that are there. Copy. Thank you, Shields. And thank you, Zero. I like all of that. In fact, I like that a lot because I can go back and change the name, because this is kind of like when weapons... Alright, paste. There we go. Astral Star Sign Energy Awakened. And if we go back, we can change the other name to Dormant. And that way it kind of registers what this is. All right, now we can change up what these do as well. Oh, geez. Now, for those that weren't here earlier, my star signs are not the same as the zodiac, but you can use those zodiacs if you want. But this one is going to be focused on my homebrew world. So I used the whale already. I used the snake. And I used the mammoth. So what's the next one that we want to use? So here's my idea. First off, I want there to be something to do with telekinesis. So we have to use something clever. So we're going to go with the Kirin, or the unicorn, so to speak. Kirin's Force. So, now here's where it comes in and you have to be creative. Now you can make your own ideas, but for this instance, there's something already written down that I can use that really fits what I want it to do. So if we go to Psychic subclass I looked up earlier, and go to Psi Warrior, if you go down here to telekinetic movement, this is exactly what I want, because it's a simpler and effective version. You can move an object or creature with your mind. As an action, you can target one loose object that is large or smaller, or one willing creature other than yourself. If you can see that target, and it is within 30 feet of you, you can move it up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Alternatively, if it is a tiny object, you can move it to or from your hand. Either way, you can move the target horizontally, vertically, or both. Once you take this action, you can't do so again to a short rest or a long rest. We don't need to worry about the psionic die, because we're not doing that. Now here is where we were talking about with key points, because now we're getting into the point where there's higher power aspects. So we want it to be slightly limited. So we're going to require key points for some of these abilities, especially because I'm going to alter one thing of this. Choose a larger, smaller, or one willing creature. I'm going to just say one creature. If you target a unwilling creature, that target or creature must make a wisdom, or no, this be strength. A strength saving throw, because it's about resisting your push or your pull of your telekinetic energy. To resist the telekinetic movement. As an action, you can target one loose object that is large or smaller, or one creature other than yourself. If you see the target... here's another one. I'm going to change that as well. Because who says you can't use the energy on yourself? And we're going to let them know, including yourself. That way, if you wanted to, you can actually move yourself up 30 feet. And then tiny object also applies to your crystal weapon. So for any reason your crystal weapon gets knocked out of your hand, you can use that action to bring it back to you. All right, so we have one. So now we have, I want to make at least another one, because I want this to go in the ways that it gets to all 12 signs having some kind of ability, because that's why it's the 12 stars. We are only up to 6 if we do this, so we got 2 more levels worth of things that we can increase. Because we're not doing telekinetic all the way. That's why we're not just doing all telekinetic abilities. So our next astral sign, we could do the hunter and give advantage on attacks. So let's do that. Let's do the, let's see, the saber-tooth. There we go. So instincts. The saber-tooth's instincts. Or, to make it simple, the tiger. The tiger's instincts. Actually, let's go with aura, because that sounds better than force. The Kirin's aura. The tiger's instincts. So let's say if you fail an attack roll against a target, you can expend 1 key point to re-roll the attack and use the new roll's results. So that gives you the ability basically to have advantage on any attack if you miss. But you get to wait until you actually miss, which means you don't necessarily waste having advantage on something. There we go. If you fail an attack roll against a target, you can expend 1 key point to re-roll the attack and use the new roll's results. You use your reaction to re-roll the astral tiger's predatorial instincts. Once this feature, yeah. And then it's just based on key points, so you don't have to worry about rests. Can use 1 key point there we go. So each one is a key point use. All right, now for the last one. Let's think about what we want to do for this third boost. In fact, we could go as far as 4. It doesn't have to be 3 just because the first one was. Because this is an awakened state, so you're getting a lot of benefits. All right. So we got the hunter. We still have the forge, or the behemoth, which is basically a dinosaur concept. So something that has to do with the forge or has to do with creativity. So this is more of an ability check. The behemoths. Let's see. The behemoth's forge now. Wisdom? The behemoth's wisdom, or what's a good thing for like the concept of using an abilities check to create or fix or like, so the question is, how would this be helpful? Let's think of this. What's a common thing that monks struggle with? So what about an ability check for, say, identify, maybe an identify ability? No, I would say that'd be more the whale. So what would be a good way for the forge or the behemoth, the concept of a large creature that focuses on creation? let's go with the behemoth's dexterity. Because they have dexterous hands to create and to move. When you make a dexterity ability check, you can use one key point as a reaction to add your, oh, we already have, yeah, add your wisdom modifier to the roll's results. You can use this ability after the roll's results, but before you learn the outcome of the roll. So that way, if you're doing, let's say, a dexterity acrobatics check, and you use your key point, that way you don't know if you've already succeeded. So that way it's not like, oh, I'm going to make sure I succeed. It's a, did I succeed or not? I don't know. I'm going to use this now. So that way it's a mystery. So it's not always guaranteed success, but it's a help, kind of like guidance. But is that the best one? Is the behemoth? Is there a better one that would make sense? The wolf? Maybe. I feel like that'd be more like survival. Or the eagle's dexterity. There you go. That makes more sense. So let's go with the eagle. Eagle's dexterity. Boom. And you can give it a neat little description if you want to. So let's say, for instance, channel the magical aura of the mighty Kirin and use it to affect the physical world around you. You know, that way it's a little bit more creative for your players who could see what the concept is. By tapping in to the astral energies of the quick and clever eagle, you can increase your dexterous actions with a wise mind. So we have two new extra reactions you can use for an attack and for ability checks. All right, so we have three, and I kind of want to do a fourth because we're not going to, I think, hit the mark we want to hit otherwise. But first, let's go up here and change these now. So, the tiger's instincts. And Kieran's aura. The eagle's dexterity. I feel like saying the eagle's wisdom makes more sense, because you're adding your wisdom modifier to the dexterity. There we go. And we can get rid of these little snippets. And then you just add the basic snippet, because that way that's all it needs to be, is the simplicity of what you're adding. Alright, then use on point to move an object or creature with your mind. That's all it needs to be said, because that's what the main description is for. Alright, and then eagle's wisdom. That's why it's so important to have periods in your writing, because that way you can focus on which snippet you want to take and put in. There we go. We can also get rid of the wings unfurled, because we're not going to be using that. Now, here's a fun one we can do. Let's add something in that affects what we already have as a monk. So what if we added something to, say, the monk's Step of the Wind? So what do we have? The bowl. So we can use the bowl for its Step of the Wind. The bowl's... let's see, what would this be? Ferocity. Ferocity. Okay, my bad. So, as a part of your Step of the Wind action, you can make an unarmed strike against a target within range of your dash action. You can continue your dash action after you have made your strike using your remaining movement speed. We can bold that just like it has there. And then the easy thing with this, copy, paste, the bowl's ferocity. And you just take that simple snippet and put it here. Nice. And there we go. So let's add a little snippet to that. Channeling the astral strength of the bowl. You empower your speed with strength. With physical strength. because that way they keep their Step of the Wind, but now they can add to it with the added bonus of having an additional attack, which you normally have as a monk anyway, but that way you don't sacrifice your additional attack if you do Step of the Wind. All right, now comes the things you got to do. So, all of these are actions. So now you have to make an action for each one. So first easy way to do it is also just copy this, because you're going to be using it a lot, and it also helps you not having to go back to discover what you were planning on doing in the first place. So first action we add the general action. Come down here, paste. You can make this italicized again. If you want, you can do this and just paste it, and that way you also keep the way it's written. To further, Tiger's Instincts. Now you don't have to have this written every time because it's going to get really big in your character sheet. So, but there's no reason you can't, because this just pops up on the little sidebar, so it won't actually take up your slot. All right, so Tiger's Instincts. This is an action, a reaction. Copy. And get rid of that part. If you fail on attack roll, expend 1 key point to re-roll the new roll. And you can get rid of a little description too. Alrighty. And that's it. That's all you would need to add. Because you don't have to write anything else. You don't have to do any kind of ability score if you don't want to. Because it's just a reroll. And it's just to give you a general idea of what you're supposed to do. And you just save it. And then copy and paste this again, because you're going to need it. And now you have that. Technically, we could make it to where you don't have to use it as a reaction, because that is a pretty tough reaction to have to waste on just a reroll. So maybe we just make it a free action because you have to use a key point. But the problem with that is then you use key points until you hit. Ooh. So you might waste all your key points in one turn just to make sure you hit that attack. Hit that attack. So what if we did that? So now it's just no action, and they don't have to use the reaction for that, which means it's all about how many key points you have. And now we get rid of this part. And boom, you have a way more overpowered ability than you previously did. And always make sure to edit it all everywhere, because that way it's consistent. Now that's a good ability. don't need your reaction for this one either. So we can get rid of that. Boom. Now we've just made a much more powerful monk additive that'll give your players a feeling of real power from this subclass. Copy the new version so you can make sure it stays consistent in your next ones. Alright, so you add the action. Oh, okay. Save changes. That way it saves. Sometimes you'll get that notification even if you just saved it. I don't know why. It's just the way that goes. And this is going to be a general. All of them are going to be generals. Paste. This is the Kirin's Aura. Save type. Wisdom. Using your wisdom. Effect of a save success. Not moved. Effect on a save fail. Target is moved by telekinesis. And then you also do the range. So there's no range here, but what you can do, make this an action, and you can change it from general to a spell. And this you can also display if you want as an attack, but you don't have to. Just so you can figure out what you want to do. So if you want to do a display as an attack, it'll show up in your actions on your attack screen so you remember where it is. So we're going to do that. It's ranged. Well, we're going to go with sight. But if you go to range, which is probably better, that way you can put in 30 so you know how long of a range you have. And then you go to, as an action, target one loose. There. So use a key point to move an object or creature with your mind. And then you're good. Always make sure to copy again, because that way you can skip the next phase easier. And then save. And now this will show up as a spell attack, but you know what it does. It's basically telekinesis movement. All right. Next, we're going to do a general one. Because this is the Eagle's Wisdom, so this is another no action. And this is simple. You just take this. When you make a dexterity ability check, use one key point. Copy. Paste. And boom. That one's the easiest one because it's simple and it's required the player to do a little extra work on reading, but you can't really do much else with it. But what you can do is add wisdom, and it might show up, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, and then you're good. And then last but not least, action. This will be a bonus action, and it'll actually be an attack. So this is where you have to do a little bit of work. So after you paste this, copy, paste. Step of the Wind is a bonus action, so you want to make sure it's there. This is an unarmed strike. And this will be using force, because it's your unarmed strikes are all force damage now. So keep that in mind. Affected by martial arts. Proficient. Wisdom. Attack range melee. 1. And then, because you're getting this at level 6, it'll be a d6. So you save this. Now here's the part you have to remember. Because now that we've done this, it has to add into your unarmed strikes as well. So you add the level override again. And then at level 11, becomes 1d8. And then at level 17, it becomes 1d10. Just like regular unarmed strikes for a monk. Alright, save that. And now you have all your actions set. And that's that. So we save this, everything's set. You go back a little bit until you get back to this page. And then you go into our little character sheet here, because now everything's been edited. And if we go to manage, and we up our level by 6 to 6, crystal weapon, we can check these out to see how they look. Automatically alphabetizes it for you, by the way, which is nice. And these are all set as well. So now, if we go into this, oh, now we have found a glitch. So I don't know if this is part of what happened or somehow, but it's doubled up our topazes and crap like crazy, like it's tripled it. This is not correct, so something went wrong. But if you look, Kieran's aura is right here. So we gotta go change something, because something didn't quite work. But Bull's Ferocity, right here. Gives you that D8 force, plus 4. So it's all set like it should be. And you can add it as part of your Step of the Wind. But now we've seen that issue. We're going back to manage. So we can come back later. Go back 1 level. And then we're going to go in here. We're going to see where we went wrong. So if we go into the crystal weapon, something isn't quite right. Something happened to cause this to go astray. So if we take away is granted, and come back. So this might have been on me. So if we take away is granted, because that might be why it's all of a sudden giving us the situation. So let's see if this fixed the problem. All right. So we go back in here. Go back to 6. And let's check this out. No, we still have a problem, see? For some reason, it's adding a, attack every time. So something went wrong, or they're having a glitch in their system. But something has caused it to have multitudes of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's also registering that we have emerald weapon. So something happened that's not working the way we want it to. So we need to go back. See? Something is going on. There we go. So that's what happened, is we had something wrong that was chosen. If we go to just amethyst, see if that helps. There we go. Now we fixed that. So there was just multiple ones clicked. That was the problem. Now, it's a D8. So if we gotta go to manage. And let's go up to level 11 to see if it properly levels up our attack. It does. So it's at a D10 now. So it looks like that part works fine. All right, I can go back down to 6. But as you can see, now it's all fixed and everything. You can see in the actions as well that Kieran's aura is registered as an attack, so you can use that. And Bull's ferocity is also registered as a bonus action to let you remember when you're down here and doing your Step of the Wind that it's part of that same thing. Unfortunately, you have to kind of customize notes. So unfortunately, you can't do that in, but if you do this and put in Step of the Wind, now you know that it's part of that. So keep that in mind. Some of these things you want to do aren't going to be registered right away. You have to kind of add them in yourself into the character sheet. So if you're DM, keep that in mind for your players. All right. Next, we go to our level 11 aspect. And then we have a level 17 aspect. So these are 2 more things we have to focus on. So we have 7 so far. So if we go to this, and we take this, because remember, the whole point of this subclass is to focus on the stars, on the star signs. That's its purpose. So you have to go with something that fits the criteria and the editing you're doing. And you just change this up a bit. Where were we? It was level 11. So 11th level Way of the 12 Stars feature. Now this also has options, but we're not going to do that. So we're not doing options. However, that's not to say we can't if we wanted to. Now here's the fun thing. You don't have to do it here, but you can do it in the previous one. Because that way it's all part of the same thing that you chose. So there's a lot of things you could do here. We're not going to do that though. So my thought process is we're just going to focus on the abilities that you get from the stars. The weapon itself is kind of already overpowered as it is with each one it gives. So we're not going to focus too heavily on the weapon because the weapon's given to you right off the bat and you're set. Because that also already increases its attacks anyway. And your DC will increase with you as well. So that's already set to be good throughout. Because that's just there as your bonus weapon. The goal of this subclass is to focus on the abilities you get from the stars and using your monk weapon crystal as your substitute. So we don't have to worry too much about doing any more with the weapon. So now we're just going to create more options that you get with this. All right. So we have 7 and we need to get to 12. So we need 4 more. All right. Hi, Dragon Mama.
Hello.
What's up?
Not to like pause you or anything, but can I get some ibuprofen?
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Mom's going to keep you entertained real quick.
What? What am I supposed to do?
I don't know. Sit in the chair and chat.
Okay. Even though he pulled the sucker really close to the desk, so I guess I'm sliding in this way. Hi, everybody. I just got back from work. Hi, Zero! Yeah, I just got back from work. I did some stuff outside. I ate lunch. I cleaned and I set up things. Those what biceps? I ain't got nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. You probably got to help me up.
Then up you go.
Too far. Too far. I took the chair with me.
Took everything with you.
I didn't like mess anything up, did
I mean, nothing but the floor.
Clean that up later.
Alrighty, back to it, everybody. We're almost done with this subclass. I had headphones. Where'd they go? Where did I put the headphones? What? Oh, they fell? Oh.
Everything.
Alrighty, I'm back. Very productive. Yeah, she always tries to be very productive, and I've always appreciated that about her. Mostly because she can't sit still, but it's also just a good habit of keeping yourself, working and doing something.
That and my employers can never get mad at me because I do so much.
That's true. If you make yourself needed and they can't fire you because of that, that's the goal. Is make it so where you're so needed that if they fire you, they lose.
Basically.
Okay. All right. So we do this. Astral, star, sign, energy. Exalted, I believe is the word I want to use. Right? I think that's what I want to use. Let me check something. If we go to Critical Role, Weapons of Divergence, Vestiges of Divergence, they'll tell you the words I'm trying to think of. Titanstone Knuckles. Yes, exalted. So dormant, awakened, and exalted. That was the word I was trying to think of. So it's like you yourself are a weapon. All right. So what of our let's look at what we have left. We have The Hydra, unity, is the representation. The Hydra. Hail Hydra. The wolf. By the way, if you're wondering why these animals seem so randomized, I use a app called app. I use the tool for creating a map from a place called Inkheart, no, not Inkheart. What is it called? Incarnate. I use Incarnate to make my maps online, and Incarnate has a certain amount of astral signs, like actual like star signs you can put on your maps. And that's what I've based this on, because that's how I first started creating my astral space campaign. So I kind of just stuck with that, because that way I could have them in the pictures. So that's why things are a little bit weird. But honestly, I also like the diversity of it. The scorpion, which I love because I love scorpions, so... And the spider. Ironically, 2 arachnids. Alright. Now, the spider in my campaign... Hashtag fishgame. The spider in my campaign is called the Mother, or Mather. That's her name, like the goddess's name, representation of the star sign. So, what's a motherly concept we could put? So, the spider's... We'll just go with spider's love, and it'll be a charm effect. The scorpion's sting. And then, let's see. The wolf is the roamer, or the, like, traveler. So the wolf's... general directions concept. So wolf's guidance. Wolf's guidance. And the Hydra represents unity. I know! Digimon Con! Oh, mommy went to go rest. She's having a migraine. So she's not having a great time coming back from work with that. And we're about to go to D&D tonight, so she's got to deal with a migraine and D&D. Unity. Alright. So, for the Hydra's Unity, this is going to be something that focuses on assisting other players in the monk's party. So, if anything, let's think of a way that this could help. So, let's see, can use a key point. Use one key point to grant... Should we do advantage to other... Let's think about this. I think advantage. Oh, is it like a whole day's difference? Yeah, you might be right, actually. I have to check my... I have it on my YouTube to notify me. Yeah, to grant all allies within 30 feet advantage on all attack rolls until the end of your next turn. So it's like the Hydra using its multitudes of heads. That's pretty good, I'd say. And then our little fun tidbit. Channeling the Hydra's unified minds. You can aid your allies as if you were all of one mind. Channeling the Hydra's unified heads, you can aid your allies as if you were all of one mind. You can use one key point to grant all allies within 30 feet advantage on all attack rolls until the end of your next turn. I'd say that's pretty good. Alright, Wolf's Guidance. Alright. This one seems simple to me. Get rid of the bolding. Channeling the essence of a pack mentality. You aid your allies in their in all efforts. You can use one key point to grant... Ooh, I got it. To grant one, or to grant them a bonus to their ability checks, attack rolls, or saving throws. The bonus is equal to your martial arts die. To one of your martial arts die. So it's basically you give them a blessing. And this will be a reaction. Oh no, you know, we could treat it like bardic inspiration. They keep this use of the die and once they use the bonus die, it is gone until you use a key point to grant it again. Nice. And I feel like for the advantage, oh man. For in combat, should they just both be actions or should these both be reactions? I feel like the Wolf's Guidance should be an action, or no, bonus action because it's, yeah, there it is. As a bonus action because it's like bardic inspiration, and then this can be a bonus action as well, or no, I don't know. Let's do this as a reaction. No, because it has to react to something. Let's just do this as a action. We'll do it as using it as an attack action. Your attack actions. Because that way you still have an attack if you want it when you get to multi-attack. Alright, the Scorpion Sting. I'm still thinking on that, but Spider's Love. This is a healing aspect, gotta be. So how about this? Channeling the astral energy of the Spider Queen Mother. You aid your weakened allies. As a bonus action, you can use 1 key point to heal all allies within 30 feet. I think this would be 2 key points, because that's a lot of healing. 2 key points to heal all allies within 30 feet by rolling... Let's see. Let's go with 2. No, let's go with, yeah, 2. By rolling 2 of your martial art die. And then add your wisdom modifier to results. So it's basically like a better mass healing word. And that means at this point, at level 11, it's a D10, right? So that's 2d10 plus your wisdom for healing. It's pretty good. You know, it's not a ton, but it's not terrible either. So it seems fair. Because I feel like 3d10 might be pushing it too much. I think that's too much healing. Because if you roll 3d10, everyone just got 30 HP back. So at best, you're getting about 20 HP back per person. It's a little high, but not too high to make it overpowered. And it's 2 key points. That's not bad. Alright. Now for the Scorpion Sting. This is the charm effect, because it's a love. The Scorpion is the lover. So as an action, you can channeling the deceptive Scorpion's love for their mates. You can control the hearts of those around you. You can use 2 key points as an action to try and to target a creature within 30 feet and cause them to be charmed by you until they are hit by an attack or are freed from the charm effect. No. Yeah, just, or by hit by an attack. Because it's not a concentration, it's just until they're hit by an attack. Until they are freed, the target considers you, their ally, and lover as well as your allies are treated as their allies as well. There we go. Condition. Condition. There we go. Nice. I like it. Unless they succeed a charisma saving throw. Oh, no, I know. When you hit. So it's like stunning strike. When you hit with an attack. Because that makes the whole scorpion sting thing. To cause them to become charmed by you. Until they are freed by being hit by an attack, the target considers you their ally and lover, as well as your allies are treated as their allies as well. I like it. Save changes. All right, let's go back to here. We can grab this little tidbit here and just copy and paste. Yeah, we can get rid of these. All right, and then paste. Unity. The wolf's guidance. Scorpion's sting. The spider's love. Use a key point. Copy. Copy. There we go. Copy. And then last. Copy. Nice. All right. And now you just copy and paste this, because you're going to need it yet again to make all these little actions you have to do. So add an action. This will be a general action. This is the Hydra's Unity. It'll be Wisdom. This be Emanation. 30 feet. This would be an action. Display as an attack. All right, and that should be good. Also make sure it's on that. 30 feet. All right. And then you just take this little thing, copy, paste, use one key point, one of your attack actions to grant allies within 30 feet advantage on all attack rolls until the end of your next turn. So save. All right, and then don't forget to copy again, because we're going to need this for the next one. And then save, because it'll take you to this, and add action. General. Oh, no, we didn't want that. We wanted just regular paste, so we get all the things. This would be Wolf's Guidance. Wolf's Guidance. Dice count 1. Because we're getting this at level 11, it'll be a D10. Display as an attack. This is a bonus action. And then 30 feet range. If you put it as a ranged attack, that way it'll also register the fact that you are, able to use this dice as your roll, but you don't necessarily have to do that because it should register as just as is. And then don't forget copy and then save. Now this is what you got to remember, because your dice count will change with your martial arts, so you have to do at least one level override. So at level 17 it'll be a 1d10, because it should be a 1d8 right here at level 11. Yeah, at level 11 it's a 1d8. right? Yeah. Right. And then don't forget to copy again, because you're going to need it. And save. Add an action. Now this will be an attack. Scorpion's Sting. Save type will be Charisma. This is an unarmed strike. Or this will be just, actually no, this will be just an attack. It'll be melee. The action. I think I forgot a 1 up here, so you gotta go back here and add the 1 again. And then take the little tidbit. Put that in the snippet, just so the player realizes what it does. And save. And then whatever damage you do, or, attack with, that'll at least tell you the save that they need. And then don't forget to copy again for the last one. This will be a spell. Paste. Copy. Paste. Bonus action. Spider's Love. Add your wisdom. You don't have to add your proficiency. Display as an attack so you can see it. Area of effect size is emanation. 30 feet. From self. Health check, everyone. Make sure to drink plenty of water. Don't forget your dice count. 2. It'd be a D10. No, it'd be a D8. Sorry. So 2D8 is what your level will be at that point. And then it automatically will add your wisdom modifier to it as well. And then save. And then again, you want to make sure you add the level override. At level 17, it becomes 2d10. Or should we be... Let's make this a little bit better. Let's go with 2 of your crystal weapon die. Because that means it's going to be even higher. And that gives a better healing effect. So you're channeling your healing ability through your weapon, and it's spreading out. Into your crystal weapon. Now here's the part that's going to be a little bit of annoyance. Now you gotta take this. You gotta go through all those again, because now I just edited that. So we have to change the ones on the other ones, otherwise somebody will get confused by the description. Paste. 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 And now we edit that to D10 because, like I said, remember our crystal weapon is slightly better. Add that override. Nope, wrong one. Go down to the override and edit and make that a D12 because that way your healing is more beneficial as you get to higher level. Perfect. And now if you're wondering why we didn't do that with Wolf's Guidance, is because Wolf's Guidance is coming from our key, but the healing energy is flowing through the weapon and glowing. That's the emanation. So that's the difference. All right, and that's all for that. Oh, I gotta change this part real quick, just so there's no confusion. All right, there we go. And that is all done there. All we have left is the last aspect. One more thing. The last piece. So the question is, what do we want to do here? What is the final big bonus for this monk? They've gotten all the stars now, and they got the weapon. So we have to think of an idea that'll give us something to really look forward to by the end of it. Way 12 stars. Get rid of all that because we don't need it anymore. So now we go back to that concept I was telling you earlier. What if we added something to our weapons? So, what's a good bonus to our weapons? What if they have the reach property? That could be something. Then you could have an extended reach weapon. But then that doesn't really help with your martial arts, so it's not really as useful. So, we gotta think then. Think. What's a good final point for this? Here's my thought. Just because it's so useful and we use so much of it, let's focus on key points. Something simple, because you've already done so much work on your homebrew, that is really just important to give that final taste of, yes, now I can be broken. So, at the start of your turn, or at the start of a new encounter, let's do specifically a new battle encounter, you regain key points equal to your wisdom modifier. It's simple, right? That's because you're just too good, Zero. You're just too broken. Nobody can use you, Zero. You're too easy, too strong. We just can't. It's not fair to the other players that you're here. And that's it. Just that. The simplicity of it. But here's the other thing. What if we added another little aspect just to make it a little bit more fun? Or, just in general, that, something add. You gain resistance to the damage type of your crystal weapon. And we'll call this Astral Conduit. We go from here, we can get the right writing style. Now it's not italicized. You have become a conduit. The astral energies surrounding you in the astral plane. At 17th level, you gain the following benefits. Gain resistance to the damage type of your crystal weapon. Let's see, what's a nice little cheeky last third option? I know. Your crystal weapons attack die. Oh, no, I have it. You gain a +3 to your crystal weapon attacks. Now, does that seem like it's powerful enough, or should we do 2 dice for each attack with a crystal weapon? Because a monk doesn't get multiple attacks like a fighter does. It'll always just have the 2 attacks and then the 2 bonus action attacks of unarmed strike. So its damage output will be limited if we do this. So what if we did that? What if we made it 2 dice? Your crystal... Ah, Jake, no. No. Elvira. Hon. Hold on. 1 second, guys. I have a cat problem. All good. Ooh. No, our bird is named Jake. You know, I don't know, because the essence is our self has become a conduit. How about this? Your unarmed strikes now deal an additional damage dice. No, because then they won't want to use the crystal weapon, will they? They'll just want to use unarmed strikes the whole time. So... damage dice count is increased by 1. There we go. We can get rid of these actions. Now we add a modifier. Resistance. And choose a damage resistance. Now that should, and I stress should, allow you to just choose any of them. But the problem is I don't know if that's only elemental types. So we're gonna see when we go into the creator. Damage of your crystal weapon. There we go. And then actions. General. This would be a special. In fact, if you want to go back, you could change the no action option we did in one point and change it to special if you would like. At the start of combat, regain key points equal to your wisdom modifier. Astral energy inside you replenishes your natural key energy. At the start of a new combat encounter, you regain key points equal to your wisdom modifier. Alrighty. And boom, there you have it. Now, how do we change the weapon, you ask? That's easy, actually. So you go back to Crystal Weapon. Because now we have to finish what we started, remember? We didn't complete all of them. But we can go back to Amethyst Crystal Weapon, go into Actions, go into Override, and where you see D12, you edit, and you change that to 2. And boom, bada boom, it's done. You're going to do that for each one. And now our weapon is very powerful, which makes it all the worthwhile to stay in this subclass all the way to level 17. Because that's really what you want. You don't want your early aspect to be the only worthwhile, because otherwise they'll just multi-class and ignore the rest of your work. All right, everybody. Now we go. We save. And now we see if all this worked. Now I'll go back later and I'll add those extra weapon things, but you know, you guys don't have to see me do all that. So if we go into our character sheet, go to manage, and we change this to 17. And then reload, because that way it reloads the changes you've made. Crystal weapon is still amethyst. Go down to astral conduit and choose damage resistance. Ah, see, this is what I was worried about. Is it only has resistance to certain things. Acid, cold fire, lightning, and thunder. So we're in a bit of a disadvantage here. So what we have to do is we actually have to go back in and then if you go back into the homebrew, if you go to crystal weapon, what you do, go into here, amethyst crystal weapon, add a modifier, well, actually, this won't work because it'll automatically give it. So that's the problem we face here. So your best bet is, because this didn't work, if you don't want to have to do a huge amount more options, you go back, and you take away this resistance concept. Simple as that. Save changes. Modifiers. Now you could potentially add a modifier if you want. So if you do resistance, and you go to the specific one that's not there, like say necrotic, so it won't let you. Can't make that as a choice option. It'll automatically just give it to you. You don't want that. That's the problem we find here. So unfortunately, we can't do it this way. Not unless you wanted to change all the types you were doing to just those 5 types of elemental based. Which you can do, but I mean, where's the fun in that? So it just depends on how you want to do it. So we're going to delete that. We're going to save. Going back to crystal weapon. As well as resistance to the type of damage associated with the crystal type. So now at level 3 you get this feature instead, which makes it way easier to edit. So all you do then is go to Amethyst Crystal Weapon. We deal force damage. So what you add a modifier. You have resistance. And you put force. And boom! Now you have resistance to force damage. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to change some things. Because force damage is so weird of a thing to resist, I'm going to change Amethyst to Thunder. because that way it's more conscientious of the idea of absorbing force. Because your blade is supposed to absorb the energy, but energy is not force. Force is just a pulse of energy, whereas thunder is an actual wave. So when the wave energizes, your weapon will actually resist that thunder, which still causes, you know, force technically, because it can still push. So we change this to thunder. And then we add this little modifier here. And then go to your action, amethyst weapon, change the damage type to thunder, and there you go. You also want to change the words on it a bit, but and now we're not kind of copying and pasting everything from Gem Dragonborns, because it's still kind of our own thing. Especially because Sapphire, I believe, is supposed to be like thunder or lightning anyway, but we went with cold because I think Sapphire and cold make more sense. And boom, bada boom. You have the changes. Now you have to go back a little, though. You have to go to this and change this to thunder damage. Because we're already dealing force damage with our fists from the earlier ability we got. And just like that, you're all good. All right, now if we go back into our character builder, we go down here. Oh, well, it hasn't quite edited yet, so we reload. All right, so we gotta actually just straight up exit out of this. Sometimes it does take a little while for your creation to register that you changed something. Because even though I got rid of the modifier, it was still registering there. So and then you go down to where I was, which is monk. I use rule 2014. Add your modifier. Choose your monastic tradition, 12 stars. Choose whatever language you want. Crystal weapon. Amethyst. And it's still saying it's there, but it should fix itself eventually once you take some time to let the thing load. But what we can see is now, look, the amethyst weapon registered as 2d12, so that worked. Hydra's Unity is there. So now you know that's there, and you can click on that to give advantage. The aura has upped. Scorpion Sting is registered to deal that additional, or to basically show you what that damage will be when you melee attack. And then you add that as the save requirement. And then if you go down, Bull's Ferocity and Spider's Love is here for self, which means you can roll that to heal everybody. Now, the reason we didn't change Spider's Love is because it's still registering only 2 of your weapon dice. So it's still only going to be 2d12. It's not going to go up to 4d12. But there you have it, everybody. We have created a custom subclass. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please let me know in the comments down below in the YouTube. And if you enjoyed it on Twitch, please subscribe and follow us so you can keep following us for more content. Tomorrow we'll more than likely be playing a video game instead of doing this, but I'm hoping you enjoyed this. So, until then, I love you all. Thank you so much. And let's go see who we can find to raid over to. Not a lot of people that we know are playing right now, it seems. So we're going to go to the murder train, Zara Zabusa. Or, let's see what else we got. Ah, here's a session 19 person. They're doing some Dungeons and Dragons, so let's go see them. Thank you all so much. Zero, always a pleasure. I hope all of you had fun. I love all the new follows. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you again next time.